Tonight, the Building Commissioner reassures residents after a report found a risk of collapse at a complex in Sydney. The unemployment rate remains steady despite surprising December figures. Two unexpected health announcements from the royal family within a matter of hours. And wickets 4 at the Adelaide Oval, Australia all out for 283, while the West Indies are 6 for 73 at stumps. Good evening, Lydia Feng with ABC News. Residents of a Sydney apartment complex have been offered a reassurance tonight that their homes are safe, despite a report finding the development was at risk of collapse. The Building Commissioner says there is no likelihood of that happening and the defects are being rectified. But many residents and owners have been sent into a panic.
Superior design, green open spaces and an unparalleled lifestyle. That's how developer Greenland describes its Lachlan's Line project in Macquarie Park. But a report from the Building Commission says a defect in the basement slab could put it at risk of collapse.
Obviously, when you hear the word risk of collapse, you just get triggered immediately, obviously. It's like, oh my God.
Now, the Building Commissioner says the report has been misinterpreted and all defects are being addressed.
I want the public to understand there's no imminent risk to this building and the safety of the people in it. And I'm very distressed that this story has got to the point where those people have got stress on them that was avoidable.
It's the same project where an 18-year-old apprentice was killed in a scaffolding collapse during construction in 2019.
That was before any of the legislative powers in New South Wales were stood up. As far as the builder that was involved in that site that had a horrendous safety record, that sort of builder will cop us landing on their job all the time from here on in.
The Commissioner also found the building's certifier had been fined in the past 10 years.
That's history. I can't say that that's an evidence of continuing bad practice.
Developer Greenland Australia says it's confident the issues here are not structural and are confined to the lower car park levels. This latest scare comes as the state government keeps pushing hard for people to accept high-density living. It says buyers should not be spooked, but instead reassured.
This is a good thing. This is the system working when it comes to building quality.
That message is starting to get through to developers now. Stop making the shoddy decisions that you used to once make.
A message buyers want to believe. Sean Turek-Goodwin, ABC News, Sydney.
And if buyers are worried about defective developments, the Premier has more bad news for them. He's conceded the state is unlikely to meet its target of building 75,000 new homes in 12 months. The industry says there aren't enough tradies and planning rules are out of date.
Just 5 months ago, the Premier was right behind the Prime Minister's plan to fix the housing crisis.
That's why National Cabinet has agreed to an ambitious new national target.
But he now admits New South Wales will fall behind on its share of the target, 75,000 new homes in 12 months.
We've been clear from the very beginning that 75,000 from almost a standing start would be difficult to accomplish in 12 months.
Chris Minns didn't even consult his own planning department before he signed up to federal targets. If Chris Minns can't be trusted on the targets he announced only 5 months ago, he can't be trusted to deliver more housing in New South Wales.
The construction industry says more needs to change to build up supply.
If we get the apprentices and we get the skilled tradespeople from overseas and we get a reformed planning system and labour doesn't explode, then the industry will do its best to achieve those targets.
It's not just New South Wales struggling to meet housing targets. Industry experts believe Australia will struggle to meet its national goal of building 1 million new homes over the next 5 years, with the number of new builds actually beginning construction falling by more than 10% in the most recent quarter.
The way things are trending now, we're not even going to come close to meeting that target.
While federal incentives for exceeding targets seems out of reach for now, the state government hopes new planning reforms will make a difference in the long run. Ethan Ricks, ABC News, Sydney.
Penny Wong has reiterated a pathway to peace during her diplomatic tour of the Middle East. Tensions in the region remain on edge as the United States launched a fourth wave of strikes against Houthi rebel-controlled sites in Yemen. The Foreign Minister walked a delicate tightrope as she met with Israeli and Palestinian officials separately.
It's a real privilege to come back here.
At Israel's official Holocaust memorial, Foreign Minister Penny Wong learns about the horrors of World War II, with an eye on the current conflict and a message for all those involved.
One of the things that is a takeout for me is the importance of us all remembering our common humanity.
Just an hour away, the top diplomat then travelled into the occupied Palestinian territories, where Palestinians claim they've been increasingly stripped of their humanity since October 7.
Yet we can see Israeli settlements.
More than 500,000 Israeli settlers live illegally in the West Bank, and violent incidents on Palestinians have surged during the war.
We're also to listen to you.
Meeting with affected communities, the senator stressed her view that settlement building was inconsistent with a pathway to a two-state solution.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
A view welcomed by the Palestinian Prime Minister.
I was very encouraged to hear a very strong statement from the minister on issues that has to do with settlements and the Australian opposition of settlement construction.
Penny Wong is the most senior Australian official to have come to Israel and the West Bank since October 7. And she's reaffirmed her support for a ceasefire in Gaza and more humanitarian assistance. But her tour in the Middle East has had one overarching theme.
I am here to add our voice, Australia's voice, to advancing the cause of peace.
Both Israeli and Palestinian officials say the senator's visit shows solidarity with their people.
Australia is a friend of Israel's. We are also a friend of the Palestinian people.
She'll finish her regional tour in the United Arab Emirates on Thursday. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
There's more evidence the economy is slowing. Tens of thousands of people lost their jobs before Christmas or were full-time roles. Outside of the pandemic, it was the worst December result in 3 decades.
This cafe is losing a much-loved employee. Jack Creed just quit so he can move back home.
Because I can't afford to live in Melbourne anymore, and so I'm moving back to Echuca.
Jack's boss is now filling the role.
A year ago we didn't get a single response for an ad. Now we've been inundated with people looking for work.
So do you feel that people are a little bit more desperate for work at the moment?
Definitely.
Around 65,000 jobs were lost before Christmas, but almost 66,000 people also stopped looking for work in December. This prevented the unemployment rate from rising from 3.9%.
Things are turning away from workers compared to a few months ago. The labour market is now decidedly less tight than it was at the start of 2023.
The figures have seen some correction after very high figures that came forward in October and November.
This is the biggest loss of jobs in a month outside COVID since the early 1990s. The stark reality is that this is part of the Reserve Bank's plan to cool down the economy, and these figures may take pressure off the central bank to keep hiking rates. Matt Johnson, who works in construction, is worried about job cuts.
If there's a massive downturn, I'll possibly get laid off. Hopefully there's an incline in employment, but yeah, it's not looking great.
Matt's mother, who cuts his hair for free, is down one worker on a year ago.
We used to have another hairdresser work with us, and there's not the demand for it, so I'm just doing it myself.
Some economists are tipping the unemployment rate will rise to 4.5% by the end of the year. Amelia Terzon, ABC News.
The Workplace Relations Minister has ruled out intervening in a pay dispute between Australia's second largest port operator and the Maritime Union. Earlier, Tony Burke met with both parties and accused DP World of acting in bad faith. The stoush is leading to major delays at ports across the country.
Roger Fletcher runs a business exporting meat, wool and grains across the world. If his products get stuck at the docks, he says he'll lose customers.
If we can't deliver to our customers on time, we're completely buggered.
Roger and others have been calling on the federal government to step in and end a pay dispute between maritime workers and DP World. It's led to major disruptions at the ports with a backlog of tens of thousands of containers.
The Albanese government simply should not allow the union to keep holding the rest of Australia to ransom.
But Industrial Relations Minister Tony Burke, who met with the company today, won't intervene.
I think Australians are sick to death of having highly profitable companies say everything is the fault of them having to pay their workforce the same as their competitors.
Former competition watchdog boss Graham Samuel says companies like DP World are charging importers and exporters excessive fees to use the ports.
Charges should be the subject of a mandatory code of conduct, which would be dealt with, overseen and enforced by the ACCC.
Economists worry that the prices of goods imported, like electronics and fresh produce, could also rise.
If stuff can't make it into the country but people still want to buy it, you've got the same number of buyers chasing less stuff. That's going to push the price up, and that's a problem for inflation.
Mr Fletcher fears continued delays could mean foreign countries stop buying Australian goods.
Who I'm sorry for is the trade missions that run around the world trying to get trade. Austrade, they must be tearing their hair out.
DP World says the economic impact warrants intervention, but that it will work within the Fair Work Commission process to ensure a resolution. Nassim Khadem, ABC News.
The ABC has obtained video of a prison guard assaulting a 16-year-old boy inside a notorious youth detention facility in an isolated part of a Western Australian adult prison. The boy, who was handcuffed and being escorted by a specifically trained youth custodial officer, was kneed in the torso by a prison guard responding to a riot about a year and a half ago. Last month, he was found guilty of assault, fined $5,000 and given a spent conviction. The WA Department of Justice says adult prison officers who regularly work in the facility receive appropriate training, but refuse to say if other guards, like the one found guilty of assault, were given any guidance on juveniles.
If this, as the government says, is a complex, challenging, sometimes violent group of young people, well, people need to be trained to respond to that and respond appropriately.
There is no additional training, in fact no guidelines for them to work within, and Unit 18 is not where juveniles should be.
The Fair Work Commission has begun hearing a claim by the former ABC radio casual presenter Antoinette Lattouf that she was unlawfully dismissed by the broadcaster. Ms Lattouf says she was fired for posting a Human Rights Watch video about the war in Gaza on her personal Instagram. The ABC claims Ms Lattouf breached its social media policy.
Media commentator and journalist Antoinette Lattouf was hired as an ABC Radio Sydney presenter for 5 days last month. But her employment was terminated on day 3 after being accused of breaching social media policy. She's taking it to the Fair Work Commission.
The fight continues and I'm willing and prepared to fight for as long as it takes.
Ms Lattouf's claim says her manager called her on day 1 and told her Jewish lobbyists were unhappy that she was on air. She says they spoke about social media use and was told sharing content from reputable organisations was fine. Ms Lattouf then shared this Human Rights Watch video on her personal Instagram with a caption she wrote. She was fired the next day and has asked the Fair Work Commission to find she was dismissed because of her race.
It's not just about me, it's about free speech, it's about racism, and crucially it's also about a fair, independent and robust ABC.
The ABC's submission is that Ms Lattouf's case is fundamentally and entirely misconceived. The broadcaster has told the Commission Ms Lattouf failed or refused to comply with directions that she not post on social media about matters of controversy. It says her race was entirely irrelevant.
The ABC's claim confirms the organisation received complaints about Ms Lattouf's perceived bias on the war in Gaza. Ms Lattouf claims those letters influenced the ABC's decision to sack her. Managing Director David Anderson denies that. In a staff email, Mr Anderson said the ABC rejects any claim that it has been influenced by any external pressure, whether it be an advocacy or lobby group. Ms Lattouf is seeking compensation for damages to her reputation and for the broadcaster to pay a penalty. Isabel Rowe, ABC News, Sydney.
Coming up on 7:30, the big supermarkets under scrutiny as prices soar.
Meat and vegetable prices going through the roof.
Basically, there are just two competitors and they don't have to fight very hard on price.
We've always had a budget, but now it's getting harder and harder to keep within that budget.
Also, I'll speak to the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Philippe Lazzarini.
Both King Charles and the Princess of Wales will be away from public duties temporarily for health reasons. 42-year-old Catherine is recovering from successful abdominal surgery, and next week the King will have treatment for an enlarged prostate. It will force them to delay previously planned engagements over the coming weeks.
Inside this London hospital, Princess Kate is recovering from surgery to her abdomen.
It's clearly a problem for Buckingham Palace. It's a tricky situation.
The Princess had the planned operation on Tuesday. Her office provided no further details, but said her condition wasn't cancerous.
Based on her age, based on her fitness, her recovery should be straightforward. And as long as she looks after herself and not rush back to her very, very busy schedule.
And she won't be. The Princess will be in hospital for up to 2 weeks and is unlikely to return to public engagements until after Easter.
The Princess has expressed through a spokesperson that she understands there'll be significant interest in her surgery, but her focus right now is maintaining normality for her children.
Less than 2 hours after the news of Kate, it was revealed King Charles would also be stepping back from royal duties for health reasons. In a statement, Buckingham Palace said, in common with thousands of men each year, the King has sought treatment for an enlarged prostate. His Majesty's condition is benign and he will attend hospital next week for a corrective procedure. The King hopes his treatment will encourage more men to get their prostate checked.
Well, I hope it will open those conversations that men can have with each other. And hopefully with their GP. Sometimes we hear men talk about how they find it embarrassing to talk about any prostate problems. But I think it's fantastic that, again, it opens the opportunity to really understand that prostate problems are common and they're nothing to be embarrassed about.
The King, who was last seen in public on Christmas Day, hopes to be back at work in a few weeks' time. Elias Kluwer, ABC News, London.
An explosion at a fireworks factory in Thailand has killed about 20 people, but devastation at the scene has made the death toll uncertain. The factory in the heart of Thailand's central rice-growing region was virtually levelled flat by the blast. It's thought as many as 30 workers could have been in the building at the time of the explosion. The cause is under investigation, but authorities say it was likely ignited by construction work at the warehouse. The Environment Watchdog suspects more than 10 tonnes of mulch containing asbestos was used at the Rozelle Parklands in Sydney's inner west. It's been found in garden beds and near a playground. The EPA has ordered all contaminated material be removed by February 29th. Authorities today blamed the Christmas period for not acting on a tip-off for 7 days. Australian NBA star Josh Giddey has been cleared of any charges relating to an improper relationship with an underage girl. 21-year-old Giddey, who is in his third season in the NBA, faced allegations that a girl seen with him in videos and photographs was a high school junior at the time. Newport Beach police in the US issued a statement saying, after a thorough and exhaustive examination, we were unable to corroborate any criminal activity related to Mr. Giddey. Giddey has been booed in away games since the allegations surfaced. He's averaging close to 12 points in a game this season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. To finance now, the share market has dropped to its lowest level in 5 weeks, while the job market is getting increasingly competitive. Here's David Chow.
65,000 workers were let go in December, just before Christmas. And while that's an incredibly high number, so was the 381,000 workers who were recruited last year as employers went on a hiring spree. Overall, the labour market has shrunk back to where it was in October, just as the Black Friday sales were about to heat up. Unfortunately, the job hunt will only get more difficult, especially given Australia's population grew by more than 600,000 people last year and will still rise quickly in the months ahead, while the number of positions and job ads are trending downwards. So what will this mean for interest rates? Money markets are betting rates have hit their peak and the Reserve Bank will probably stay on hold for a while. But as the year goes on, they're pricing in a 100% chance of a rate cut by September, as inflation is likely to have come down enough for interest rates to be relaxed a little. Meanwhile, it was another bad day for the share market, which has been falling for almost every day this year. The All Ords slipped by 0.6% today, driven by losses across the mining sector. The Aussie dollar also tumbled down to about 65.5 US cents, having dropped 4% since the year began. It comes after a gloomy session for most of the major overseas markets, as doubts linger on how quickly central banks in the US and Europe will cut their interest rates. And finally, it was a rough day for commodities as well, with fairly significant falls in gold, oil and iron ore prices. And that's finance.
Josh Hazlewood has put Australia on the verge of victory after just 2 days of play in the first test in Adelaide. Travis Head knocked a century in front of his home crowd to give Australia the lead before Hazlewood tore through the West Indies' top order late in the third session.
Usman Khawaja and Cameron Green resumed play on day 2. Shamar Joseph continuing his remarkable debut as Green was sent back for just 14.
Yes, a genuine edge.
Travis Head helped settle things down, firing off 4 quick boundaries. But the morning session belonged to the visitors, with 3 wickets before lunch.
That's what they need. Big breakthrough for the West Indies.
Head moved beyond 50 after the break, finding the boundary more freely. As wickets fell around him, he stood resolute on a pitch that others found difficult.
Again, he just gets into line and guides it down to third.
Joseph had his 4th when Mitchell Starc was caught at short leg, before Head had his moment, knocking his 7th Test century in front of his home crowd.
They have come in their thousands here to the Adelaide Oval and their golden boy has delivered for them.
The local boys' knock finally came to an end on 119 to a standing ovation around the Oval. Joseph's moment following soon after with the new ball.
Straight through, Shamar Joseph!
Breaking through for his 5th wicket. Australia all out with a lead of 95. The visitors were sent back in the 3rd session of play. Josh Hazlewood tearing through the top order, taking 4 wickets in his first 5 overs.
Oh, is that a nick? It is! Straight away, Josh Hazlewood on the money.
The West Indies left reeling at 6 for 73, trailing by 22 runs. Cameron Slessor, ABC News.
Australian Max Purcell put on a show on day 5 of the Australian Open today, but fell agonisingly short in a 5-set thriller against world number 11 Casper Ruud. And in the women's draw, reigning French Open champion Iga Swiatek survived an almighty scare on centre court.
The heavens opened and the roofs closed early on day 5, the brief intermission giving Australian world number 45 Max Purcell a boost.
What a way to do it.
But the 25-year-old's hopes of reaching the 3rd round of a Grand Slam for the first time were dashed by Norwegian 11th seed Casper Ruud in a gruelling 5th set tiebreak.
Look, I made a lot of errors, but I think that helped me stay free for the whole match and allowed me to, almost get across the line at the end.
Runner-up in 2022, Danielle Collins pushed the world number 1 to the brink.
Well, the Danielle Collins backhand has joined the party.
Iga Swiatek snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. At 4-1 down in the deciding set, a 5-game winning streak turning her fortunes around. Even if she wasn't sure how she pulled it off.
I don't even know. Honestly, I was on the airport already.
The outside courts were kept quiet by the rain in the afternoon. Alexander Zverev not impressed by the local wildlife taking shelter on John Cain Arena as he battled Slovakian qualifier Lucas Klein through tie breaks in the 4th and 5th sets to win through to the 3rd round. Last night, 2 more Aussies bowed out with their heads held high. Jordan Thompson nabbing the first set against last year's runner-up Stefanos Tsitsipas, but the world number 7 eventually found his rhythm and never looked back. Alexei Popyrin also put up a fight.
That's the wow moment he was looking for.
Before Novak Djokovic fired up in more ways than one to claim his 2nd round victory, taking issue with a heckling spectator.
For him, he didn't have the courage to come down.
Erin Marsico-Vetere, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
Socceroos coach Graham Arnold says he's expecting a tough encounter in their 2nd group stage match against Syria tonight at the Asian Cup. The Australians have finalised their preparations for the clash in Qatar following their 2-0 win over India in their tournament opener. Arnold says his side needs to improve in attack against the Syrians, who have troubled the Socceroos in recent meetings. The Central Coast Mariners have moved up to 4th place in the A-League women's competition following a dramatic win over reigning champion Sydney FC. The Mariners took the lead in the first half courtesy of a Sydney own goal. A second-half red card to goalkeeper Sarah Langman gave the Sky Blues hope, though, and when the substitute keeper made an error, Sydney drew level. But the Mariners were handed a controversial penalty in the 9th minute of stoppage time, which was converted via a rebound by Chinese striker Ergaville. To the weather now, and Tom, summer sunshine returned to the state today.
Yes, Lydia, we saw heavy rain last night, but we woke to clearer skies across Sydney, although storms continue to fire up across the state's northeast. Now, here are the 24-hour totals to 9 a.m. Glen Innes was soaked by 56 millimetres. That was their heaviest rain in 10 months. Other notable falls included 29 millimetres for Cowra, 28 in Orange. Now, for Sydney, heavy falls continued late last night before the rain cleared offshore near midnight. The top fall was 55 millimetres at Randwick. Now, the city's 40 millimetres takes the January total to 124 millimetres, already 22 millimetres above the monthly average. Storms were confined to the northeast today. Tamworth earlier collected 25 millimetres of rain, but that activity has now contracted up to the northern rivers. Sydney's cloudy night again kept minimums warm. 21 in the city was 2 above the average. Sunshine then helped our maximum reach 30. That was 4 above, although high humidity made it feel as warm as 34. The current humidity ranges from 90% on the coast to only 36% in the west. And that's due to variable winds this afternoon. A dry westerly airstream across the west and a moist easterly off the Tasman for the coast. But that westerly will finally win the battle and flush out the humid easterly winds later tonight, which means a cooler, more comfortable sleep for all. Statewide minimums were as much as 8 below average in the west, where a drier southwesterly arrived last night. Broken Hill dipped to 11. That was their coolest minimum for 2 months. Maximums today were warm along the north coast, 33 in Newcastle, and it was much cooler across the south. Now, on the satellite, well, we can see the clearer skies spreading across New South Wales, while thunderstorms are very active across Australia's north. On the chart then, this trough will stall over the far northeast and trigger further storms tomorrow right up near the Queensland border. Around the country then, showers and storms in Brisbane, and it's only a clearing shower or two for Melbourne, so it's not looking too threatening for the tennis. Now, for the northeast, sunny for the south, but there's a high chance of showers and even the risk of severe storms for the far north coast. It's a medium chance for the upper ranges, but only the slight chance elsewhere, anywhere north of about Coffs Harbour. For the southeast then, a cooler night in the drier westerlies, then sunny tomorrow with maximums reaching very pleasant mid to high 20s. To the west, a coolish night apart from the far north. Sunny tomorrow and heading for the high 20s in the south and up to the mid 30s for the north. On the waters, winds from 20 to 30 knots and seas 1.5 metres, although high seas just off the far south coast. Now for Sydney, finally a cooler night. We're dipping to the mid-teens in the west and down to 18 or 19 near the coast. Should be sunny tomorrow, heading for 28 in the city. We'll have afternoon southeasterly winds. That will keep the beaches to 25, while the west climbs all the way to 31. The sun will rise at 6:02 a.m. And ahead, partly cloudy and warm on Saturday, 28 to 31 degrees. Now, it should be very warm on Sunday, 32 for the city, 37 in the west. That's ahead of an overnight southerly change, leading to a cooler and cloudier Monday, but only the odd shower. Now, there's the chance of a shower again on Tuesday, then all indications are hot weather will return through Wednesday and Thursday. Lydia.
Thanks, Tom. Here's Laura Tingle with 7:30.